everyone, this is Grace of gbmaltese, and I am here to do another story for you today. As you can see, I am still working on my diamond dot squares. I'm getting closer to finishing. I've been doing a bit of crocheting in between. So the deer is so precious in this picture. And this has been a delight to work on. So if you are considering doing a diamond dot squares, go for it. They're really nice. I've enjoyed working on this. And I've had people ask about the pen I'm using. I try to link those things below my video. The diamond painting pen is from an Etsy shop, and I will put that down below. And I always use my everlasting tips in my pens because I find them so much easier to work with, picking up my drills. And that also comes from an Etsy shop, and I will link that down below also. The story I'm going to read for you today is written by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, which of course are from Grimm's fairy tales. This is one that you might not have heard before. And some of these Grimm's fairy tales that you have heard before, they've been changed since they took them from the Grimm's fairy tales. But the one I'm going to read you today is Jorinda and Joringel, and I hope you enjoy it. Once upon a time, there was a castle in the middle of a deep forest where an old woman lived quite alone, for she was an enchantress. In the daytime, she changed herself into a cat or an owl, but in the evening, she became an ordinary woman again. She was able to entice animals and birds to come to her castle, and then she would kill and cook them. If any youth found himself within 100 paces of the castle, he became rooted to the spot and could not stir till the woman set him free. If a pretty girl came inside the magic circle, the old enchantress changed her into a bird and locked her up in a wicker cage. She had 7,000 such cages in the castle, each containing a rare bird that had been a happy, carefree young girl. Now, there was once a maiden called Jorinda, who was very beautiful. She was betrothed to a youth named Joringel, and their greatest delight was to be together. One summer evening, the two went for a walk in the forest. It was calm and peaceful under the trees, and the fading sunlight glinted on the dark green leaves. "How beautiful this place is," sighed Joringel. But we must take care not to come too close to the witch's castle." They wandered on, hand in hand, and without knowing why, they began to feel sad and forlorn. In a nearby tree, a turtle dove sang its plaintive lament. They looked around quite confused, for they did not remember their way home. Jorinda began to weep and sob, overcome by a strange fear. Joringel tried to comfort her, but he too felt something ominous in the air around them. Half the sun was still above the mountain, and half had dropped behind it, when Joringel looked through the trees and saw the old wall of the witch's castle near them. He was terrified. In the last rays of the setting sun, Jorinda sank to the ground and began to sing. "My little bird with throat so red, sing sorrow, sorrow, sorrow. He sings to the little dove that's dead. Sing sorrow, sar. Jug, 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 Joringel looked at Jorinda. Right before his eyes, she had been changed into a nightingale and was singing, "Jug, jug, jug." An owl with glowing eyes flew 3 times around her and screeched 3 times, "To-wit, to-wit, to-hoo!" Joringel could not stir. He stood like a stone. He could not weep nor speak, nor move hand or foot. Now the sun had disappeared. The owl flew into a bush, and immediately an old, bent woman came out of it. She was yellow-skinned and thin, and had large red eyes and a hooked nose, which met her chin. She muttered to herself, caught the nightingale that had once been Jorinda, and carried her away in her hand. Joringel stood speechless and motionless, until at last the woman returned and said in a gruff voice, "Good evening, young man. When the moon shines on the basket in my castle, you will be freed." And suddenly the moon broke through a cloud, and Joringel was free. He fell on his knees before the old woman and implored her to give him back his Jorinda. She said he would never see Jorinda again, and then she went away. He called after her. He wept, but all in vain. "What is to become of me?" he cried. After a while, he found a way out of the forest and came to a strange village. There he took employment as a shepherd and stayed on herding sheep for a long time. He often went back to the castle, but never too close. Then one night he dreamed that he found a blood-red flower, in the center of which lay a beautiful pearl. He plucked it, and in the castle everything he touched with the flower was freed from the enchantment, and thus he rescued his lovely Jorinda. When Joringel awoke, he set out to find such a flower. He roamed through woods and valleys and crossed steep mountains in his search. For 8 days he did not give up hope, and on the 9th, early in the morning, he found it. In the center of this flower was a large dewdrop, as big as the most lovely pearl. He traveled day and night with the flower till he arrived at the castle. This time, when he came within 100 paces, he was still able to move, and he continued on till he reached the gate, delighted at his success. He touched the great gate with the flower, and it sprang open. He entered, passed through the courtyard, and then stopped to listen for the singing of the birds. At last, Joringel heard the melodious chirping and followed the sounds until he found himself in the great hall of the castle. And there was the enchantress with her thousands of birds in their wicker cages. When she saw Joringel, she went into a rage and breathed out poison and gall at him. But she could not move a step toward him. He took no notice of her and looked at the thousands of cages filled with birds. How was he to find Jorinda among them? While he was considering, he saw the old witch pick up a cage and steal toward the door. But he sprang after her and touched her and the cage with his flower, making her powerless to work enchantment ever again. And the little nightingale stepped out of the wicker cage and became Jorinda, more beautiful than before. Then Joringel walked all around the room, touching each cage with his magic flower. One by one, the birds were released and turned back into lovely maidens. When they were all freed, Joringel went home with his Jorinda, and they lived a long and happy life. So, I thought this one was quite an interesting little story. I had never heard this one before. I thought it enchanting. I enjoyed it very much. It is very short, so this is a very short video. Let me know if I read a short one like this, if you would like for me to read maybe 2 instead of just 1. Just let me know in the comments below. Tell me if you've ever heard this story before. Are there any stories that you know of that maybe you'd like me to read? I can see if I can find them. Some stories I cannot read because of copyright infringement, but I'm finding all sorts of things. And I'm going to let you go for now, and I hope you're having a lovely day, evening, night, whatever it might be. Take care of yourselves, guys. I love you and wish you many blessings. God bless. Bye.